A Werewolf Shifter Romance by Lena. From Lena's Romance Library. Chapter 1. The Rejection. The scent of pine and anticipation hung heavy in the air as Luna Hartwell stood at the edge of the Crescent Moon Pack's ceremonial grounds. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic rhythm that matched the distant drums echoing through the forest. Tonight was the claiming ceremony. The night when wolves found their destined mates under the full moon's silver gaze. At 22, Luna had waited longer than most. While her childhood friends had already been claimed by their fated mates, she remained alone, watching from the sidelines as couples bonded under the ancient oak trees. Her human heritage made her different from the others, slower to shift, weaker in wolf form, and according to the whispers that followed her through the pack grounds, less desirable. Luna. The voice that had once made her pulse quicken, now sent ice through her veins. She turned to face Marcus Blackwood, the pack's future beta, and the man she'd loved since they were children. His dark hair caught the moonlight, and his amber eyes that had once looked at her with warmth, now held something that made her stomach clench with dread. Marcus. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I was looking for you. The ceremony is about to begin, and I thought, that's what I need to talk to you about. He stepped closer, but not in the way she'd hoped. There was distance in his approach, a careful space he maintained between them. Luna, I've found my mate. The words hit her like a physical blow. The forest around them seemed to tilt, and she grasped the rough bark of a nearby pine to steady herself. Your mate? Sophia Reeves. The name fell from his lips with a reverence that Luna had never heard him use when speaking about her. She's perfect, Luna. Strong, beautiful, from a pure bloodline. Everything in Beta's mate should be. Luna's throat constricted. Sophia Reeves, the Alpha's niece with her willowy frame, platinum blonde hair, and wolf form that moved like liquid silver through the forest. Everything Luna was not. But what about us? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Marcus, we've been together for 2 years. You said you loved me. You said, I thought I did. His voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. But that was before I understood what real mate bonds feel like. What I felt for you, it was just attraction, Luna. Confusion. You have to understand. You're not like us. You're only half wolf, and even then, barely. Your wolf is weak, your human side makes you soft, and you? He gestured vaguely at her fuller figure. You don't look like a beta's mate should look. Each word was a knife between her ribs. Luna felt her wolf, Arya, whimpering in the back of her mind, not just from the rejection, but from the cruel dismissal of her worth. True, Luna's curves were fuller than the lean, athletic builds favored in werewolf society. True, her wolf form was smaller and less imposing than most. But she'd thought Marcus saw past all that. I need you to step aside, Marcus continued, his voice taking on an official tone. I'll be announcing my bond with Sophia tonight, and it would be awkward if you were standing with me. People know we've been together, and I don't want there to be any confusion about where my loyalties lie. Luna straightened, drawing on every ounce of dignity she possessed. Of course, we wouldn't want to confuse anyone about what you really think of me. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes, regret, perhaps, or guilt. But it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Luna, don't make this harder than it has to be. You'll find someone else. Maybe someone human, someone more suited to what you are. The dismissal was complete. Luna nodded stiffly, not trusting her voice to remain steady. She turned away from him, away from the ceremonial grounds where couples would soon be celebrating their eternal bonds, and walked deeper into the forest. Behind her, she heard Marcus's footsteps retreating, heard the distant sounds of the ceremony beginning. Alpha Councilman Reed's voice boomed across the clearing, welcoming the pack to witness the sacred claiming ritual. Soon, Marcus would stand before everyone and claim Sophia as his mate, and Luna would become nothing more than an embarrassing footnote in his past. She walked until her legs gave out, sinking onto a fallen log beside a small stream. The tears came then, hot and fierce, carrying with them 2 years of hopes and dreams. She'd been so sure that Marcus was her destiny, so certain that their connection transcended the superficial values their society prized. Stupid, she whispered to herself, her voice thick with tears. So stupid to believe he actually loved you. He never deserved you. Arya's voice whispered in her mind, fierce and protective. Our mate wouldn't care about such shallow things. Our mate? Luna laughed bitterly. Arya, look at us. We're everything this pack sees as worthless. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe I should find some human who doesn't know any better. No. Arya's response was sharp. Certain. Our true mate is out there. I can feel it. Someone who will see our strength, not our differences. Luna wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. In the distance, she could hear howls rising from the ceremonial grounds, the sound of newly bonded pairs celebrating their unions. The sound made her chest ache with loneliness. She stood, brushing dirt from her dress, the pretty blue sundress she'd chosen specially for tonight, thinking Marcus might like it. Now it felt foolish, like a costume for a role she'd never been meant to play. The walk back to her small cottage on the outskirts of pack territory felt endless. As she approached her front door, Luna could see warm light glowing from her neighbors' windows, could hear laughter and celebration drifting from the pack center. Everyone would be talking about the new mate bonds, about who'd found their destiny under the moon's blessing. And tomorrow, they'd all know that Luna Hartwell, the half-breed, the weak one, the fat girl who'd dared to reach above her station, had been rejected for someone better. Chapter 2. The Storm's Refuge. 3 days had passed since the claiming ceremony, and Luna had barely left her cottage. She'd called in sick to her job at the PAC's community center, claiming a stomach bug that wasn't entirely a lie. Her appetite had vanished along with her illusions about Marcus. The only reason she ventured out at all was because her pantry had dwindled to nothing but stale crackers and instant coffee. The late October sky hung low and threatening as Luna made her way toward the small market at the edge of pack territory. Dark clouds churned overhead, promising the kind of storm that would keep sensible people indoors. Perfect weather for someone trying to avoid the pitying looks and whispered gossip that had followed her since word of Marcus's very public claiming of Sophia had spread through the pack. She'd made it halfway through her shopping when she heard the familiar laugh that made her stomach clench. Sophia's voice carried across the produce section, bright and musical, discussing wedding plans with a cluster of other pack females. Luna ducked behind a display of apples, hoping to avoid another painful encounter. I still can't believe Marcus was wasting his time with that human girl, one voice said. Celia Morrison, whose sharp tongue was legendary even among gossipy werewolves. I mean, really? What was he thinking? Marcus said it was just physical attraction. Sophia's voice held a note of false sympathy that made Luna's wolf snarl. Poor thing probably thought it meant more than it did. You know how humans get confused about these things. Luna's hands clenched around her shopping basket. She wasn't even fully human. Her mother had been a werewolf, even if a weak one. But apparently, that distinction didn't matter to anyone. Well, she's certainly been making herself scarce since the ceremony, another voice chimed in. Probably embarrassed. I would be if I'd been so publicly rejected for someone so obviously superior. The casual cruelty of it made Luna's chest tight with rage and humiliation. She abandoned her shopping basket and slipped out the back exit before anyone could spot her. The first fat raindrops were already falling as she hurried down the forest path toward home, her throat burning with unshed tears. By the time she reached the halfway point, the storm had unleashed its full fury. Rain lashed through the canopy in sheets, soaking through her jacket within minutes. Lightning split the sky, followed by thunder that seemed to shake the very ground beneath her feet. The forest path, usually clear and well-maintained, became treacherous with mud and fallen branches. Luna was struggling to navigate around a particularly large fallen tree when she heard it. A low, pained whine that cut through the storm's roar. She froze, listening intently. There it was again, coming from somewhere off the main path. Every instinct told her to keep walking, to get home before the storm got worse. But that sound, it was the cry of something injured, something in pain. Despite everything that had happened, despite how the pack had treated her, Luna couldn't ignore an animal in distress. She pushed through the undergrowth, following the sound deeper into the forest. Branches caught at her clothes and scratched her arms, but she pressed on, guided by the intermittent whimpers that grew stronger as she approached. In a small clearing sheltered by an overhang of rock, she found him. The wolf was massive, easily twice the size of any pack wolf she'd ever seen, with fur so dark it was nearly black even in the dim light filtering through the storm clouds. He lay on his side, one hind leg twisted at an unnatural angle, his breathing shallow and labored. Blood matted his fur along his flank where something had torn through hide and muscle. Luna approached carefully. Even injured, a wolf this size could be dangerous, especially if he was feral rather than a shifter. But as she drew closer, his eyes opened, and she gasped. They were the most extraordinary shade of silver she'd ever seen, almost luminous in the gray light. Intelligence burned in those eyes, along with pain and something that looked almost like resignation. This was definitely a shifter, not a wild wolf. "Hey there," she said softly, crouching a few feet away from him. "You're hurt pretty badly, aren't you?" The wolf's ears flicked toward her voice, and his massive head lifted slightly. He studied her with those remarkable silver eyes, and Luna felt an odd flutter in her chest, something that had nothing to do with fear. "I'm Luna," she continued, keeping her voice gentle and steady. "I'm going to help you, okay? But I need to get closer to see how bad your injuries are." She moved slowly, telegraphing her intentions. The wolf remained still, watching her approach with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. When she was close enough to touch, she extended her hand, letting him catch her scent. The moment her fingers made contact with his fur, something electric shot through her. The wolf's eyes widened, and she heard him make a soft sound that was almost questioning. Luna felt her own wolf, Arya, suddenly surge to alertness in her mind. "Mate," Arya whispered, her voice filled with wonder and certainty. Luna's breath caught. No, that was impossible. She'd just been rejected by who she'd thought was her mate. The moon couldn't be that cruel, to show her what she could have had just days after having her heart shattered. But she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward this injured stranger, the way every instinct screamed at her to protect and care for him. "Okay," she said, forcing herself to focus on the immediate problem. "Let's see what we're dealing with here." The wolf's injuries were serious but not life-threatening. The leg was definitely broken, and the gashes along his side needed attention, but with proper care, he would heal. The question was how to get him somewhere safe and dry. "My cottage isn't far," Luna murmured, more to herself than to him. "But you're too big for me to carry, even if I shift. Can you understand me? Can you move at all?" The wolf's response was to struggle to his feet, favoring his injured leg heavily but managing to stand. He was even more impressive upright, His shoulder would easily reach her chest, and the power in his frame was evident even weakened by injury. "Careful," Luna said, reaching out instinctively to steady him. Again, that electric jolt when her skin touched his fur, and she saw something flicker in those silver eyes that made her pulse race. The journey back to her cottage was slow and treacherous. The storm showed no signs of abating, and more than once, the injured wolf stumbled, leaning heavily against Luna for support. Each contact sent waves of awareness through her, making it impossible to ignore whatever was happening between them. By the time they reached her small front porch, they were both soaked to the skin and exhausted. Luna unlocked her door and held it open, gesturing for the wolf to enter. "Come on," she urged. "Let's get you warm and dry." The massive wolf hesitated at her threshold, those silver eyes meeting hers with an expression that seemed almost human in its complexity. Then he limped inside, leaving Luna to wonder what exactly she'd brought into her home, and into her life. She unlocked her door and stepped inside, grateful for the darkness that welcomed her home. Chapter 3. Unspoken Connections. Luna's cottage had never felt smaller than it did with a massive wolf taking up most of her living room floor. She'd managed to coax him onto the thick rug in front of her fireplace, where he now lay watching her every movement with those unsettling silver eyes. The storm continued to rage outside, rattling her windows and making the old cottage creak ominously. "Okay," Luna murmured, more to fill the strange tension in the air than because she expected a response. "Let me get some supplies." She bustled around her small space, gathering towels, her basic first aid kit, and a bowl of warm water. Her hands shook slightly, whether from the cold, the adrenaline, or the way the wolf's gaze seemed to track her every breath. She wasn't sure. When she knelt beside him with her supplies, he remained perfectly still, allowing her to gently clean the mud and blood from his wounded flank. The gashes were deep but clean, likely from claws rather than teeth. Another shifter had done this, she realized. The cuts were too precise, too deliberately placed. "Someone really didn't like you," she said softly, dabbing antiseptic on the wounds. The wolf's only reaction was a slight tensing of his muscles. "These are going to need stitches, but I'm not exactly qualified for wolf surgery." She worked in comfortable silence, cleaning and bandaging what she could. The broken leg would need proper medical attention. Dr. Hayes, the pack's physician, would have to be called. But something held her back from reaching for her phone. Maybe it was the way the wolf seemed to relax under her touch, or the strange sense of rightness she felt caring for him. "You're not from around here," Luna observed as she wrapped his leg in a temporary splint. "I know every wolf in our pack, and you're different." She glanced up at his face, struck again by the intelligence in those silver eyes. "Bigger, stronger. Are you from one of the northern packs?" The wolf made a soft sound that was almost like a sigh, then slowly, carefully, placed his massive head on her lap. Luna's breath caught. The simple gesture was so trusting, so unexpectedly tender, that it made her chest ache. Without thinking, she began stroking the thick fur behind his ears. And she could swear she felt him relax further into her touch. "My wolf thinks you're someone special," she whispered, not sure why she was confessing to a creature who couldn't respond. "Arya's been restless since I found you. She keeps saying—" Luna trailed off, unable to voice what her wolf had whispered. It was too impossible. Too soon after Marcus's rejection. The wolf lifted his head slightly, those silver eyes searching her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. For a moment, Luna had the strangest sensation that he understood every word, that behind those eyes was a man listening to her secrets. "Are you hungry?" she asked, needing to break the spell his gaze seemed to cast over her. "I don't have much, but there's some leftover roast chicken in the fridge." She started to rise, but the wolf's massive paw gently pressed against her thigh, holding her in place. The contact sent another one of those electric jolts through her system, and she saw his eyes dilate slightly. "He feels it too," Arya whispered excitedly. "The bond. He recognizes us." "That's impossible," Luna breathed, but even as she said it, she couldn't deny what she was experiencing. The pull toward this mysterious wolf was unlike anything she'd ever felt, deeper and more primal than what she'd thought she shared with Marcus. Thunder crashed overhead, followed immediately by a blinding flash of lightning. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging the cottage into darkness save for the warm glow of the fire. "Perfect," Luna sighed. "The generator's in the shed, but with this storm..." She glanced toward the rain-lashed windows. "We're probably going to be without power for a while." In the firelight, the wolf's silver eyes seemed to glow. He shifted slightly, making room on the rug beside him, and looked at her expectantly. "You want me to sit with you?" Luna asked, surprised by the invitation. When he didn't move away, she settled onto the rug beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his large frame. They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the storm rage outside. Luna found herself relaxing for the first time in days, her earlier humiliation and heartbreak fading into the background. There was something soothing about the wolf's presence, something that made her feel safe and protected. "You know," she said softly, 3 days ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I thought Marcus was my mate, that we'd have the perfect werewolf wedding, and I'd finally belong somewhere." She laughed bitterly. "Shows what I know." The wolf made a low rumbling sound that was almost like a growl, but not threatening, more like disapproval. "Oh, you don't like Marcus?" Luna asked with a slight smile. "Well, join the club. Though to be fair, he wasn't wrong about everything. I am different from the other wolves in the pack. Weaker. More human than wolf, according to most people." This time the growl was definitely disapproving, and the wolf turned his great head to look at her directly. "It's true," Luna insisted. "My mother was barely able to shift, and my father was completely human. I'm like some weird hybrid that doesn't quite fit anywhere." She ran her fingers through the wolf's thick fur, marveling at its softness. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be somewhere I actually belonged." The wolf shifted closer, his warm flank pressing against her side. Luna felt her wolf stir contentedly, as if Arya recognized something in this mysterious stranger that Luna herself couldn't quite grasp. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me help you. For being here. I know that probably sounds crazy, thanking a wolf I just met for keeping me company, but..." She shrugged. "Today's been better than the last 3 days combined." Lightning flickered again, and in the brief illumination, Luna could have sworn she saw something almost human in the wolf's expression. A depth of understanding that went beyond animal instinct. As if reading her thoughts, the wolf carefully nuzzled her hand, his touch gentle despite his size. Luna felt tears prick her eyes, but for the first time in days, they weren't tears of sadness. Outside, the storm showed no signs of abating, and Luna realized they'd be spending the night together. The thought should have made her nervous. She was alone with a strange, powerful wolf whose origins and intentions were completely unknown. Instead, as she settled more comfortably against his warm side, Luna felt safer than she had in years. Chapter 4. Dawn Revelations. Luna woke to the sound of silence. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind the gentle drip of water from the eaves and the soft whisper of wind through pine branches. Pale morning light filtered through her curtains, and for a moment, she couldn't remember why she was sleeping on the living room floor wrapped in a blanket. Then she turned over and found herself staring into familiar silver eyes. The wolf was awake, watching her with that same intense focus that had unsettled and comforted her in equal measure the night before. In the soft morning light, his dark fur held hints of deep brown and charcoal, and she could see that his injuries, while still present, looked less severe than they had in the storm. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice rusty with sleep. "How are you feeling?" The wolf's tail gave a slight wag, the first truly wolfish behavior she'd seen from him. The simple gesture made her smile, and she reached out instinctively to stroke his head. As her fingers tangled in his fur, she felt that same electric connection, stronger now in the quiet intimacy of morning. "Ask him to shift," Arya urged suddenly. "I need to see his human form." Luna's hand stilled. That's not really appropriate, Arya. He's injured, and we don't even know if he can shift right now." But even as she tried to dismiss her wolf's suggestion, Luna found herself studying the creature beside her more carefully. There was something about the way he held himself, the intelligence in his eyes, the careful way he moved that spoke of someone accustomed to human form. And shifters healed faster in human form. If he could change, it would help his injuries. "Can you shift?" she asked gently. "I know it might be difficult with your injuries, but you'd heal faster as a human. And..." She hesitated, then forged ahead. "I could help you better if you weren't quite so... large." The wolf studied her for a long moment, and Luna had the distinct impression he was weighing something in his mind. Then slowly, he lifted his head and gave a small nod. Luna's breath caught. That nod had been unmistakably human in its deliberateness. "Okay," she said, scrambling to her feet. "Let me get you some clothes. I think I have some things that might fit. They belonged to my father." She hurried to her bedroom, her heart racing. In all her years in the pack, she'd never been present when a stranger shifted. It felt intimate, significant in ways she couldn't quite name. She pulled out a pair of her father's old sweatpants and a t-shirt. He'd been a large man, and hopefully they'd fit whoever this wolf really was. When she returned to the living room, she found the wolf sitting up, his silver eyes fixed on her face. I'll turn around," Luna said, setting the clothes within reach. "Take your time." She faced the wall, but she could hear the soft sounds of shifting behind her, the rustle of fur giving way to skin, the quiet grunt of pain as injured bones rearranged themselves. The whisper of fabric as he dressed. Her wolf was practically vibrating with anticipation, and Luna had to grip the windowsill to keep herself steady. "You can turn around now." The voice was deep, rich, with just a hint of roughness that made her skin prickle with awareness. Luna took a steadying breath and turned. The man sitting on her living room floor took her breath away. He was tall, even seated, with broad shoulders that stretched the fabric of her father's old t-shirt. His dark hair was tousled, and his face was all sharp angles and strong lines, high cheekbones, a square jaw, and a mouth that looked like it didn't smile often. But it was his eyes that held her captive. Those same silver eyes that had watched her so intently in wolf form were even more striking in his human face. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice carrying an authority that made her wolf sit up and take notice. "For helping me, for bringing me to safety." Luna found her voice with effort. "You're welcome. How are your injuries?" He glanced down at his leg, which was still splinted and bandaged. "Better. The shifting helped, though I'll need a few more days to heal completely." He looked back up at her, and something in his expression made her pulse quicken. "I'm Kieran." "Luna," she managed, though she had the strange feeling he already knew her name. Kieran nodded slowly. "Luna." The way he said her name, like he was tasting it, made her shiver. "You're not what I expected." "Expected?" Luna moved closer, settling back onto the rug but maintaining careful distance. Something about this man radiated power in a way that was both thrilling and intimidating. "Were you looking for me?" A shadow crossed his features. "Not you specifically, but I was looking for someone in this pack." His jaw tightened. "Someone who's been causing problems." Luna's stomach dropped. "What kind of problems?" Kieran was quiet for a long moment, his silver eyes studying her face as if trying to decide how much to tell her. "There have been attacks on lone wolves from other packs. Systematic, deliberate attacks designed to send a message. The perpetrator's scent trail led here." "That's impossible," Luna said automatically. "Our pack doesn't attack without provocation." "Alpha Reed wouldn't allow it." "Wouldn't he?" Kieran's voice held a dangerous edge. "Or maybe he would if he thought he could get away with it. If he thought his actions wouldn't be traced back to him." Luna shook her head, confusion and unease warring in her chest. "Who are you? What pack are you from that gives you the authority to investigate our alpha?" Kieran's smile was sharp, predatory. "I'm not from a pack, Luna. I'm something else entirely." Before she could ask what that meant, he continued, "But right now, I'm more interested in you. Your scent." He inhaled deeply, his eyes never leaving her face. "It's unlike anything I've ever encountered. Sweet, but with an underlying strength that most people probably miss." Heat flooded Luna's cheeks. "I'm nobody special. Just a half-breed who doesn't really fit anywhere." "Who told you that?" The quiet fury in Kieran's voice made her look up in surprise. "Everyone," Luna said with a bitter laugh. "My ex-boyfriend made it very clear when he chose someone else. The pack has always seen me as less than." Kieran leaned forward, his intensity making the air between them crackle with tension. "Your ex-boyfriend is a fool, and your pack—" His eyes flashed with something that looked almost possessive. "They have no idea what they have in you." The sincerity in his voice, the way he looked at her like she was something precious rather than something to be tolerated, made Luna's chest tight with emotion she couldn't name. "You don't know me," she whispered. "Don't I?" Kieran's voice was soft, but there was something underneath it that made her wolf purr. "I know you risked your safety to help a stranger in a storm. I know you have gentle hands and a fierce heart. I know you see yourself as broken when you're actually—" He paused, his gaze dropping to her lips before returning to her eyes. "Perfect." The word hung between them, heavy with implication. Luna felt her world tilting, everything she thought she knew about herself shifting under the weight of his attention. "Kieran," she breathed, not sure what she was asking. But before he could respond, the sound of vehicles approaching made them both freeze. "The pack," Luna whispered, recognizing the rumble of the Alpha's SUV. "They're coming." Chapter 5. Dangerous Secrets. The sound of car doors slamming made Luna's heart race with panic. Through her front window, she could see Alpha Reed's black SUV parked in her driveway, along with two other vehicles she recognized as belonging to the pack's enforcers. This wasn't a social visit. "You need to hide," Luna whispered urgently to Kieran, but when she turned to him, she was struck by how completely calm he appeared. If anything, there was a predatory stillness to him that made her wolf nervous. "No," Kieran said quietly, his silver eyes fixed on the approaching figures through the window. "I think it's time we had this conversation." "You don't understand," Luna hissed, moving toward him. "Alpha Reed doesn't tolerate strangers in pack territory. If he finds you here, injured, he'll assume you're a threat. And after what you told me about investigating attacks—" "Luna!" Kieran's voice cut through her panic, and when she looked at him, there was something in his expression that made her breath catch. "Trust me." Before she could respond, heavy footsteps echoed on her porch. followed by an authoritative knock that rattled her front door. "Luna Hartwell!" Alpha Reed's voice boomed from outside. "Open the door! We need to speak with you." Luna's hands shook as she smoothed down her rumpled clothes from sleeping on the floor. She glanced once more at Kieran, who had risen to his feet despite his injuries. Standing at his full height, he was even more impressive, and more obviously dangerous. The borrowed clothes did nothing to diminish the aura of power that seemed to radiate from him. "Stay calm," he murmured, so quietly only her enhanced hearing could catch it. "And stay close to me." Luna opened the door to find Alpha Reed flanked by two of his most trusted enforcers, Beta Marcus and Delta James Morrison. Her stomach dropped when she saw Marcus, the humiliation of their last encounter flooding back. But there was something else in his expression now, something that looked almost like concern. "Alpha Reed," Luna said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "What brings you here so early?" Reed's hard gray eyes swept past her into the cottage, and she saw the exact moment they landed on Kieran. The Alpha's entire demeanor shifted, his shoulders squaring as his wolf recognized the presence of another powerful predator. "Step aside, Luna," Reed commanded, his voice carrying the full weight of Alpha authority. "We've tracked a dangerous intruder to your property." "I invited him in," Luna said quickly, moving slightly to block Reed's view of Kieran. "He was injured in the storm. I was just helping." "You were harboring an enemy of this pack." Reed cut her off, his eyes never leaving Kieran. "Do you have any idea who this is?" Luna glanced back at Kieran, who stepped forward with a fluid grace that belied his injuries. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority that made even Alpha Reed stiffen. "I'm Kieran Blackthorne," he said simply, "and I'm here on official business." The effect of his name was immediate. Beta Marcus went pale, and Delta Morrison actually took a step backward. Even Alpha Reed's confident posture wavered for just a moment before he regained his composure. "Blackthorne," Reed repeated, and Luna could hear the forced calm in his voice. "I wasn't aware the council had sent an investigator." "The council?" Luna looked between the two men, confusion evident in her voice. "What council?" Kieran's silver eyes found hers, and she saw apology in their depths. "The Werewolf Council, Luna. The governing body that oversees all pack disputes and disciplinary actions." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Kieran wasn't just any werewolf. He was some sort of law enforcement, here to investigate her pack. And she'd been harboring him, caring for him, feeling things for him that she had no right to feel. "You lied to me," she whispered, the betrayal sharp in her chest. "I never lied," Kieran said gently. "I told you I was looking for someone who'd been causing problems. I told you I wasn't from a pack. You let me think." Luna stopped herself before she could voice what she'd been thinking, what her wolf had been whispering about mates and destiny. The humiliation was almost worse than Marcus's rejection. Alpha Reed's harsh laugh cut through the tension. "Of course she didn't know who you were, Blackthorne. Luna's always been naive about pack politics, too human to understand the complexities of werewolf society." The casual cruelty of the comment, delivered in front of Marcus and the other enforcer, made Luna flinch. But before she could respond, Kieran moved. In one fluid motion, he stepped protectively in front of Luna, his presence suddenly filling the small space of her doorway with barely contained menace. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. "Alpha Reed, I suggest you choose your next words very carefully." The threat was unmistakable, and Luna saw Reed's enforcers tense, hands moving instinctively toward weapons. But Reed himself seemed to recognize that he was facing something beyond his usual authority. "Of course," Reed said, his tone becoming more diplomatic. Luna has always been a valued member of our pack. I merely meant that she might not understand the implications of harboring a council investigator. The implications, Kieran repeated softly, are that she showed kindness to an injured stranger. Something that speaks well of her character and your pack's hospitality. Marcus stepped forward, his amber eyes fixed on Luna with an expression she couldn't read. Luna, are you all right? When we couldn't reach you after the storm, and then we found traces of an unfamiliar scent leading to your cottage. She's perfectly safe, Kieran answered before Luna could speak, his voice carrying a subtle but unmistakable claim that made Marcus's eyes narrow. I wasn't asking you, Marcus said, his own authority as future beta bleeding into his voice. The tension in the air ratcheted up another notch, and Luna found herself caught between three powerful males engaged in what felt like a territorial display. Her wolf was reacting strangely to the dynamic. Instead of being intimidated, Arya seemed almost smug. Stop it, Luna said firmly, surprising everyone including herself. All of you. Marcus, I'm fine. Alpha Reed. Mr. Blackthorn was injured and needed help. That's all. She looked directly at Kieran, trying to ignore the way her pulse jumped when those silver eyes met hers. As for his investigation, I assume that's official council business that doesn't concern me. Something flickered across Kieran's features. Disappointment, perhaps, or regret. Actually, Luna, I'm afraid it does concern you. The attacks I'm investigating, they all have one thing in common. He paused, his gaze moving from Reed to Marcus and back to Luna. Every victim was a female werewolf who had recently been rejected by her intended mate. The words hit Luna like a physical blow. She saw understanding dawn in Marcus's eyes, saw Alpha Reed's face go carefully blank, and felt the world tilt beneath her feet. No, she breathed. That's not possible. But even as she said it, Luna realized with growing horror that it explained everything. The timing of the attacks, Kieran's presence in their territory, the way Alpha Reed and his enforcers had tracked him to her cottage. She wasn't just a witness to Kieran's investigation, she was the target. Chapter 6. The Hunter's Truth. The silence that followed Kieran's revelation stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap. Luna felt the weight of 4 pairs of eyes on her, but all she could focus on was the sudden coldness in her chest, the way her world seemed to be reshaping itself around this terrible new reality. That's impossible, Alpha Reed said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. Our pack has had no reports of attacks on rejected females. Because they weren't reported to you, Kieran replied, his tone deadly calm. The attacks happened to lone wolves, females who had left their birth packs after rejection. Women who had no one to advocate for them, no one to demand justice when they disappeared. Luna's legs felt weak. She gripped the doorframe for support, her mind racing. How many? 7 confirmed victims over the past 6 months, Kieran said, and the gentleness that crept into his voice when he looked at her made her chest ache. All young women, all recently rejected, all found dead in territories bordering this pack's lands. Marcus stepped forward, his face pale. Luna, you never said anything about leaving the pack. Because I haven't, Luna said numbly. I thought about it after the ceremony, but I never made any actual plans. But someone thinks you did, Kieran said quietly. Someone who's been watching you, waiting for the right moment to strike. Alpha Reed's expression had grown increasingly dark as the implications sank in. You're suggesting someone from my pack is responsible for these murders. I'm not suggesting anything, Kieran replied. I'm telling you that the scent trail from the most recent victim leads directly here. To this territory. To your pack. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Luna watched the subtle power play between the two males, noting how even Alpha Reed seemed cautious around Kieran. Just what kind of authority did council investigators wield? There has to be another explanation, Marcus said, but his voice was strained. No one in our pack would... Wouldn't they? Kieran's silver eyes fixed on Marcus with uncomfortable intensity. Tell me, Beta, how exactly did you handle Luna's rejection? Did you make it public? Did you announce her availability to the entire pack? Marcus flinched as if he'd been struck. I never meant for her to be hurt. The claiming ceremony is always public, and when I announced my bond with Sophia, you made it clear that Luna was unwanted, Kieran finished, his voice sharp with barely controlled anger. That she was weak, undesirable, ready to be discarded. Stop, Luna whispered, but her voice was lost in the rising tension between the males. I never said those things publicly, Marcus protested, but guilt was written all over his face. You didn't have to, Kieran said. Your actions spoke loudly enough, and someone was listening. Alpha Reed stepped closer, his own authority rising to meet Kieran's challenge. If you're accusing members of my pack without proof... I have proof. Kieran cut him off. Scent evidence, victim patterns, and witness accounts that all point to someone with intimate knowledge of pack dynamics and access to information about rejected females. Someone who understands wolf psychology well enough to target the most vulnerable. Luna's wolf suddenly went still, a terrible thought occurring to her. The ceremony, she said slowly, drawing everyone's attention. You said the attack started 6 months ago? Kieran nodded. The first victim was found in February. That's when the ceremonies started again, Luna continued, her voice growing stronger as the pieces clicked into place. Alpha Reed reinstated the public claiming ceremonies 6 months ago. Before that, matings were usually private affairs. She saw understanding dawn in Kieran's eyes, saw Alpha Reed's face go carefully blank. The killer has been using the ceremonies to identify targets, she continued, watching to see which females get rejected, then tracking them when they try to leave their packs. That's quite a leap in logic, Alpha Reed said, but there was something in his tone that made Luna's skin crawl. Kieran took a step closer to the Alpha, and Luna noticed that despite his injuries, he moved with the fluid grace of a predator. Is it? Because I'm finding it very interesting that you reinstated a tradition that directly led to these women being marked for death. You're out of line, Blackthorn, Reed snarled, his wolf rising to the surface. I won't be accused of conspiracy in my own territory. Then perhaps you'd be willing to provide alibis for your whereabouts during each of the attacks, Kieran replied smoothly, and access to your pack's records of recent rejections. The request was reasonable, but Luna saw something flicker across Reed's face that made her blood run cold. Fear. Guilt. And underneath it all, a calculation that spoke of desperation. I think this conversation should continue somewhere more official, Reed said finally. Luna doesn't need to be involved in pack business. Luna is the reason I'm here, Kieran said, and there was something possessive in his tone that made her shiver. She's under my protection now. Your protection? Marcus stepped forward, his own territorial instincts rising. Luna is still a member of this pack. She's under our protection. Really? Kieran's smile was razor-sharp. Because from where I stand, your pack's protection looks more like a death sentence. Before anyone could respond, Luna's phone buzzed with an incoming text. She glanced at it automatically, then felt all the blood drain from her face. You looked so beautiful sleeping last night. Such a shame you won't wake up tomorrow. A friend. The phone slipped from her numb fingers, clattering to the floor. Kieran was beside her in an instant, steadying her with one strong arm while his other hand retrieved the phone. His face went murderous as he read the message. "What is it?" Marcus demanded, but Kieran was already moving, his body shifting to put himself between Luna and the other 3 men. "The killer," Kieran said, his voice deadly quiet. "He was watching the cottage last night." The implications hit Luna like a physical blow. Someone had been out there in the storm, watching her care for Kieran, seeing her vulnerability, planning her death. The safe haven of her cottage suddenly felt like a trap. "We need to get you somewhere secure," Kieran said, his hand gentle on her arm despite the tension radiating from his body. "She's not going anywhere with you," Alpha Reed said sharply. "Luna belongs with her pack." "Her pack," Kieran replied, his silver eyes blazing with fury, "is where the killer lives." The accusation hung between them like a gauntlet thrown down. Luna looked around at the 3 men she'd known her entire life. Her alpha, her former lover, his trusted enforcer, and realized that one of them might be planning her murder. And the only thing standing between her and death was a man she barely knew, whose secrets ran deeper than she'd ever imagined. Chapter 7. Trust and Betrayal. The cottage that had been Luna's sanctuary now felt like a cage. She stood frozen in her doorway, caught between the man who claimed to be her protector and the pack that had been her entire world. The threatening text message had changed everything, transforming familiar faces into potential threats and forcing her to question everything she thought she knew about her life. "Luna," Alpha Reed's voice carried the weight of command, but there was something underneath it that made her wolf uneasy. "You'll come with us. The pack house is the safest place for you right now." "Is it?" Kieran's question was deceptively casual, but Luna could feel the predatory stillness in him. "Because someone with access to pack information has been hunting rejected females for months. Someone who knew exactly when and where to find them." Marcus stepped forward, his amber eyes fixed on Luna with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "Luna, you know us. You've lived among us your entire life. You can't seriously believe that one of us would..." "Would what?" Luna found her voice, surprised by how steady it sounded. "Would reject me publicly and humiliate me in front of the entire pack? Because that already happened, Marcus. 3 days ago." Marcus flinched as if she'd slapped him. "That's not the same thing, and you know it." "Do I?" Luna looked around at the 3 men who represented her pack's leadership, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time. "Because right now, I'm realizing I don't know anything anymore." Delta Morrison, who had been silent through the entire exchange, finally spoke up. "Alpha, perhaps we should call the council directly. If there's really a killer targeting our pack members..." "I am the council's representative here," Kieran cut him off, his voice carrying an authority that made Morrison step back. "And right now, my priority is keeping Luna alive." Alpha Reed's face darkened. "Your priority should be finding the real killer, not spreading paranoia and discord among my pack." "My priority," Kieran said softly, "is protecting my mate." The words fell into the tense silence like stones into still water, sending ripples of shock through everyone present. Luna felt her world tilt off its axis, her wolf singing with recognition and joy even as her rational mind reeled. "Your what?" Marcus's voice was strangled, disbelieving. Kieran's silver eyes found Luna's, and in them she saw certainty, possession, and something that took her breath away. "Luna is my mate. I knew it the moment she touched me in the forest." "That's impossible," Alpha Reed snarled. "Mates are determined by pack bloodlines, by compatibility of wolf strength. Luna is barely half wolf, weak." "Finish that sentence," Kieran interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. "And see what happens." The threat was unmistakable, and Luna watched Alpha Reed actually take a step backward. Whatever Kieran was, whatever authority he wielded, it was enough to make even an alpha reconsider his words. "But you barely know each other," Marcus protested, and Luna could hear something desperate in his voice. "One night doesn't constitute a mate bond." "Doesn't it?" Kieran moved closer to Luna, and she felt the electric pull between them intensify. "Tell me, Marcus, how long did it take you to recognize Sophia as your mate? Was it days, weeks, or was it instant, undeniable, written in your very DNA?" Marcus went pale, his silence answer enough. Luna's mind was spinning. Everything about the past 24 hours suddenly made sense. The immediate connection she'd felt to the injured wolf, the way her body responded to his presence, the protective instincts that had driven her to help a dangerous stranger. Her wolf had been trying to tell her, but she'd been too caught up in her hurt over Marcus to listen. "Luna." Kieran's voice was gentle now, meant only for her. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I need you to understand. The bond between us makes you even more of a target. Whoever is doing this won't just be hunting a rejected female anymore. They'll be hunting the mate of a council investigator. All the more reason for her to stay with the pack," Alpha Reed said firmly, "where we can protect her properly." "Like you protected the other 7 women?" Kieran's question was sharp as a blade. Luna looked around at the faces surrounding her. Reed's carefully controlled anger, Marcus's obvious distress, Morrison's nervous energy, and Kieran's fierce protectiveness. One of these men might be planning her death, and she had no way of knowing which one. Her phone buzzed again. This time, Kieran was faster, snatching it up before she could see the message. His face went stone cold as he read. "What does it say?" Luna asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "Tick-tock, little wolf. Your council dog can't protect you forever," Kieran read, his voice tight with controlled fury. "I know all his weaknesses now." The message sent ice through Luna's veins. "He was watching us this morning too. He saw you shift, saw us talking. Which means he knows I'm not just any investigator," Kieran said grimly. The threat level just escalated considerably. Alpha Reed stepped forward. "Then we need to coordinate with the council immediately. Bring in more investigators. Set up a proper protection detail." "No time," Kieran said tersely. "The killer is escalating because I'm here. He'll move soon, probably tonight." "Then what do you suggest?" Marcus asked, and Luna was surprised to hear genuine concern in his voice. Kieran's eyes met Luna's, and she saw apology in their silver depths. "We run, tonight. Get Luna somewhere the killer can't follow. Somewhere I can protect her properly." "Absolutely not!" Alpha Reed's voice carried the full weight of Alpha Command. "Luna is not leaving pack territory with a stranger, mate bond or not." "Alpha Reed is right," Luna said quietly, and she saw surprise flicker across Kieran's features. "I can't just run away. This killer won't stop with me. He'll find other targets, other rejected females to hunt. Running doesn't solve the problem." "Luna," Kieran started, but she held up her hand. "Besides," she continued, meeting his eyes steadily, "if I'm really your mate, then I'm not going anywhere without knowing the truth about who you really are. You said you're not just any investigator. What did you mean?" Kieran was quiet for a long moment, conflict clear in his expression. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "I'm not just a council investigator, Luna. I'm the Alpha King's enforcer. The council's ultimate authority when it comes to rogue wolves and pack crimes." He paused, his eyes never leaving her face. "And this case, it's personal. Because the killer isn't just targeting random rejected females." Luna's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Kieran's jaw tightened. "Every single victim was a potential mate of mine. Women the council had identified as genetically compatible with my bloodline. Someone has been systematically eliminating my possible mates. The revelation hit Luna like a physical blow. She wasn't just a random target. She was specifically chosen because of her connection to Kieran, which meant the killer had known about their compatibility before they'd even met. That's impossible, Alpha Reed said, but his voice lacked conviction. How could anyone have that kind of information? Kieran's smile was sharp, dangerous. That's an excellent question, Alpha, because the only people with access to those genetic profiles are high-ranking council members and pack leaders who've been vetted by the council itself. The implication hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Someone Luna trusted, someone with authority and access, had been using council information to commit murder, and now they were all trapped in her cottage with him. Chapter 8. Blood and Bonds. The weight of Kieran's revelation settled over the cottage like a suffocating blanket. Luna felt her world narrow to the small circle of men surrounding her, each face now carrying the potential for betrayal. The Alpha King's enforcer. No wonder even Alpha Reed seemed cautious around him. And if Kieran was right about the killer's access to council information, then the murderer wasn't just someone from her pack. He was someone with significant authority. You're saying someone on the council itself is behind this? Delta Morrison's voice cracked slightly. That's treason. Or someone the council trusted enough to share classified genetic profiles, Kieran corrected, his silver eyes moving between each man with predatory focus. Someone who would have legitimate reasons to access mate compatibility data. Alpha Reed's face had gone carefully blank, but Luna caught the slight tremor in his hands. Those records are sealed. Only Alphas with explicit council approval can request them, and only for members of their own pack. Exactly, Kieran said softly, which significantly narrows our suspect pool. Luna's mind raced through the implications. You think an alpha has been killing potential mates to prevent you from bonding. It's the only explanation that fits the pattern, Kieran confirmed. Someone with enough authority to access council records, enough knowledge to track vulnerable females, and enough resources to hunt across multiple territories. Marcus stepped closer, his amber eyes intense. But why? What would anyone gain from preventing the Alpha King's enforcer from finding a mate? Kieran's jaw tightened. Power, control, the ability to manipulate council decisions without interference from someone whose loyalty is guaranteed by a mate bond. The political implications made Luna's head spin. She'd always known pack politics could be brutal, but this level of calculated murder was beyond anything she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed again. This time, when Kieran read the message, his face went white. What? Luna demanded. Time's up. Come alone to the old mill at midnight, or I start killing pack members one by one until you do, beginning with dear Beta Marcus. The cottage erupted into chaos. Marcus cursed violently while Morrison reached for his weapon. Alpha Reed began shouting orders about lockdown protocols and security sweeps, but Luna's attention was fixed on Kieran, on the way his entire body had gone rigid with barely controlled fury. When he looked at her, his silver eyes were blazing with something that made her wolf whimper with recognition. "You're not going," he said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Like hell I'm not," Luna shot back, surprising everyone, including herself. "He's escalating because of me. Because I'm your mate. I won't let innocent people die because I'm too scared to face him." "Luna, no." Marcus stepped between them, his face pale but determined. "You can't seriously consider..." "Consider what?" Luna's voice rose. "Meeting him? At least then we'd know who he is instead of standing here suspecting each other." "It's a trap," Alpha Reed said firmly. "Obviously designed to separate you from protection." "Everything about this has been a trap," Luna replied. "From the moment I was rejected publicly, I've been marked for death. At least this way, we can end it. Kieran moved so fast Luna barely saw him. One moment he was across the room, the next he had her pressed against the wall, his body caging her in. His scent surrounded her, pine and earth and something wild that made her pulse race. I will not let you sacrifice yourself, he growled, his face inches from hers. Do you understand me? I've waited too long to find you, lost too much already. I won't lose you too. The raw emotion in his voice made her chest ache. Luna reached up to touch his face, feeling the slight tremor in his jaw. Then come with me, she whispered. We face him together. Luna, he started, but she pressed her fingers to his lips. You said we're mates. That means we're equals, partners. I'm not some fragile human you need to protect. I'm a werewolf, and I'm stronger than everyone thinks. Something shifted in Kieran's expression, surprise replacing the protective fury. Your wolf. She's not weak at all, is she? Luna smiled, feeling Arya stir with approval in her mind. Everyone assumes that because I'm half human, my wolf is diminished. But they're wrong. Arya and we've learned to hide our true strength, to seem smaller, weaker, less threatening. Why? Kieran asked, though his eyes suggested he already knew. Because strong females make the pack nervous. Especially strong females without proper bloodlines or connections. Luna's voice grew bitter. It was easier to let them think I was harmless. Alpha Reed's sharp intake of breath made them both turn. Luna, your power levels were tested when you came of age. You barely registered. I threw the test, Luna said simply. On purpose. My mother taught me how before she died. She said it would be safer for me to appear weak until I found someone who could handle my true strength. The revelation sent ripples of shock through the room. Luna saw understanding dawn in Kieran's eyes, saw the way his nostrils flared as he truly scented her for the first time without the dampening fields she'd learned to project. You're not half wolf at all, he breathed. You're something else entirely. Before Luna could respond, Morrison's phone rang. He answered with a sharp greeting, then went pale. Alpha, he said urgently. That was patrol. They found a body at the old mill. Female, early 20s, throat torn out. Luna felt sick. Another victim? No. Morrison's voice was strained. It's Sophia Reeves, Marcus's mate. The cottage went dead silent. Marcus made a sound like he'd been gutted, doubling over as if in physical pain. The mate bond breaking was supposed to be agonizing, Luna knew, but she'd never seen it firsthand. When? Kieran demanded. Unknown. Could have been hours ago. The body was positioned, like a message. Luna's blood ran cold. He killed her to hurt Marcus. To show us what he's capable of. Or to eliminate a witness, Kieran said grimly. If Sophia saw something, knew something. Alpha Reed was already moving toward the door. We need to secure the area. Call the council. No. Kieran's voice stopped him cold. We do exactly what he wants. We go to the mill. Are you insane? Reed snarled. After what he just did to Sophia? Kieran's smile was sharp as a blade. He's made one critical mistake. He thinks Luna is just another weak female he can terrorize and kill. His silver eyes found hers, blazing with pride and something deeper. He has no idea what he's really dealing with. Luna felt her wolf rising, felt the power she'd kept hidden for so long stirring beneath her skin. For the first time in her life, she didn't push it down. Then let's show him, she said, her voice carrying an authority that made even Alpha Reed step back. The hunt was about to begin. Chapter 9. The Alpha's Mark. The old mill sat like a skeletal monument against the night sky, its broken water wheel casting jagged shadows in the moonlight. Luna crouched behind a fallen log 50 yards from the building, her enhanced senses cataloging every scent, every sound that drifted through the forest. Beside her, Kieran was utterly still, his silver eyes fixed on the mill's entrance where they'd glimpsed movement moments before. They'd left the others at a defensive position near the forest's edge, Alpha Reed coordinating with arriving council reinforcements, while Marcus, still reeling from Sophia's death, had been assigned to oversee perimeter security. Luna suspected Kieran had arranged it that way deliberately, keeping potential suspects separated while maintaining the appearance of cooperation. 2 heartbeats inside, Kieran murmured, his voice barely a whisper. 1 human slow, 1 accelerated. He has another hostage. Luna's stomach clenched. The killer was escalating faster than anyone had anticipated. First, Sophia's brutal murder. Now another innocent caught in his web of violence. "I can get closer," she whispered back. "My scent dampening will hide me better than your authority scent." Kieran's hand closed over her wrist, his touch sending those familiar electric jolts through her system. "We go together. The mate bond makes us stronger when we're in contact." Luna felt the truth of his words in her bones. With Kieran's skin against hers, her wolf felt more powerful, more complete than ever before. Arya was practically humming with energy, eager to unleash the strength they'd hidden for so long. They moved as one unit, flowing through the undergrowth with predatory grace. As they drew closer to the mill, Luna caught the scent she'd been dreading. Blood, fear, and underneath it all, a familiar masculine scent that made her wolf snarl with recognition. "I know who it is," she breathed, the realization hitting her like ice water. Before Kieran could respond, a voice echoed from inside the mill, amplified by the building's acoustics. "Luna Hartwell, I know you're out there. You have 1 minute to come inside, alone, or your dear friend Jenny Morrison pays the price for your cowardice." Luna's blood ran cold. Jenny Morrison, Delta Morrison's younger sister, a sweet 19-year-old who'd always been kind to Luna despite her outsider status. The killer was using an innocent girl as bait. 30 seconds, Luna. I'd hate for pretty Jenny to end up like poor Sophia. Kieran's grip on her wrist tightened. "It's a trap. He wants to separate us." "I know," Luna replied, but she was already rising from their hiding spot. "But I won't let him hurt her." "Luna, wait," Kieran started, but she was already moving, stepping into the moonlit clearing with her hands raised. "I'm here," she called out, her voice carrying clearly in the still night air. "Let Jenny go. It's me you want." Laughter echoed from the mill, cold and familiar. "Oh, my dear Luna. Always so noble, so willing to sacrifice yourself for others. It's one of the things I've always admired about you." The voice that emerged from the mill's shadows made Luna's world tilt. She'd known, somewhere deep down, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a physical blow. "Hello, Uncle James." Delta Morrison stepped into the moonlight, his arm wrapped around Jenny's throat, a silver blade pressed against her jugular. His niece's eyes were wide with terror, tears streaming down her face, but she was alive and relatively unharmed. "Surprised?" James asked, his voice carrying a warmth that was obscene given the circumstances. "I suppose you thought you knew me. Thought I was just boring old Uncle James who brought you cookies after your mother died." Luna's mind raced through memories, seeing them in a new and horrifying light. James Morrison had indeed been kind to her after her mother's death, but now she realized it hadn't been avuncular concern. He'd been studying her, learning her weaknesses, her patterns. "Why?" Luna asked, though she was really buying time, hoping Kieran was moving into position. "Why kill all those women? Why target me?" James's expression darkened. "Because you're an abomination. All of you. Half-breeds and weaklings diluting our bloodlines. being considered as mates for pure-blood alphas. It's disgusting. You're talking about genetic purity, Luna said, understanding flooding through her. You're part of some purist movement. I'm part of the solution, James corrected. For too long, the Council has allowed inferior bloodlines to contaminate our species. Weak females being matched with powerful males, producing offspring that diminish our collective strength. So you decided to eliminate the genetic matches, Luna continued, still watching for any sign of Kieran. Kill the potential mates before they could bond. Precisely. And it was working beautifully until that bastard Blackthorn actually showed up. James's grip on Jenny tightened, making the girl whimper. I thought I'd eliminated all his potential matches. Imagine my surprise when his mate bond activated with you. Luna felt her wolf stir with fury at the casual way he discussed murdering innocent women. You're insane if you think the Council will let this stand. The Council, James laughed bitterly, is already compromised. Half of them agree with my methods, even if they're too cowardly to act themselves. When Blackthorn dies tonight, along with his mongrel mate, it will send a clear message about the consequences of genetic contamination. There's just one problem with your plan, Luna said, letting her voice carry the authority she'd hidden for so long. You've fundamentally misunderstood what I am. James frowned, clearly caught off guard by the change in her tone. What do you mean? Luna smiled, feeling her wolf rise to the surface, feeling the power she'd suppressed for years finally unleashing itself. Around her, the very air seemed to shimmer with energy. I'm not a weak half-breed, James. I never was. The scent-dampening field she'd maintained her entire adult life dissolved like morning mist. Her true nature flooded outward, carrying the unmistakable signature of one of the rarest bloodlines in werewolf history. James's face went white with shock and fear. That's impossible. You're human-born. Your mother was barely fourth generation. My mother, Luna said softly, was the last daughter of the Silver Moon line. And she taught me very well how to hide what I really am. The Silver Moon bloodline, legendary alphas who had ruled the werewolf world for centuries before mysteriously disappearing from recorded history. Wolves whose power was so great they could command any lesser wolf regardless of pack affiliation. Luna felt the familiar tingle as her enhanced abilities fully manifested. James's grip on Jenny loosened involuntarily as Luna's alpha presence washed over him, his wolf instinctively recognizing a superior predator. Let her go. Luna's voice carried the full weight of generational alpha authority, and she watched James struggle against the compulsion to obey. But James had anticipated this moment, prepared for it. With visible effort, he fought against her influence, his own considerable delta strength allowing him to resist. Clever girl, he snarled, pressing the blade harder against Jenny's throat. But I've been planning this for months. Did you really think I wouldn't prepare for the possibility of hidden bloodlines? He pulled a small device from his pocket, some kind of frequency generator that immediately began interfering with Luna's ability to project her alpha influence. Council technology, James explained with a twisted smile. Designed to neutralize rogue alphas. Ironic, isn't it? Luna felt her power being dampened, contained. But she also felt something else. Kieran's presence, getting closer. His own formidable abilities preparing to strike. You forgot something important, James, Luna said. Buying precious seconds. What's that? Luna's smile was sharp as a blade. I'm not the only alpha here tonight. The mill's back wall exploded inward as Kieran burst through in full wolf form, his massive frame even larger than Luna remembered. His silver eyes blazed with fury as he launched himself at James Morrison. The real battle was about to begin. Chapter 10. Blood Moon Rising. The mill erupted into chaos as Kieran's massive wolf form collided with James Morrison. The Delta had quick reflexes, releasing Jenny and rolling away from Kieran's attack. But not before the silver blade meant for the girl's throat opened a gash across his own forearm. Jenny scrambled toward Luna, sobbing with relief and terror. "Get behind the machinery," Luna ordered, pushing Jenny toward the old grinding stones that would provide cover. "Stay down and don't move until this is over." Luna's transformation was unlike anything she'd ever experienced before. With her power dampeners finally dropped and her mate bond fully activated, the shift felt effortless, natural, like stepping into clothes that had always been meant for her. Her wolf form was larger than any pack wolf's, nearly matching Kieran's impressive size, with silver-touched black fur that seemed to absorb moonlight. James had shifted as well, his brown and gray wolf lunging toward the frequency device that had been knocked away in the initial attack. If he could reactivate it, Luna's abilities would be severely compromised again. She intercepted him mid-leap, her powerful jaws clamping down on his hind leg. James howled in pain and fury, twisting to snap at her face, but Luna's bloodline gave her advantages beyond mere size. Her reflexes were faster, her strength more focused. She'd been bred from generations of alphas who had ruled through more than just political maneuvering. Kieran circled them, looking for an opening that wouldn't risk Luna being caught in his attack. She could feel his frustration through their bond, his every instinct screaming to protect her, even as his rational mind recognized she was more than capable of handling herself. James broke free from Luna's grip, leaving strips of flesh behind, and lunged for the frequency device again. This time, Kieran was ready, intercepting the Delta with bone-crushing force. The two males rolled across the mill floor in a tangle of fangs and claws, crashing into support beams and sending ancient dust cascading from the rafters. But James Morrison hadn't survived as a Delta for over 2 decades without learning how to fight dirty. As Kieran pinned him, James's claws found a loose board in the floor, prying it up to reveal a cache of weapons hidden beneath. Silver bullets in a modified tranquilizer gun. "Kieran!" Luna's warning came just as James fired. The silver dart meant for Kieran's heart struck Luna instead as she threw herself between them. Liquid fire exploded through her system, her wolf form convulsing as the silver nitrate compound flooded her bloodstream. She collapsed, her vision graying at the edges. Kieran's roar of fury shook the entire building. Luna had never heard anything like it. Pure alpha rage mixed with mate bond desperation. Through their connection, she felt his power spike to levels that should have been impossible. Felt the very air around him crackling with dominance. James scrambled backward, his wolf form suddenly dwarfed by the sheer presence Kieran was projecting. "Impossible," he gasped, shifting back to human form. "No alpha is that powerful. What are you?" Kieran's shift was controlled despite his rage, his human form radiating the same impossible authority. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made the mill's metal framework vibrate. "I'm not just any alpha, Morrison. I'm the Alpha King's heir, the last of the Moonstone bloodline." The revelation hit Luna like a physical blow even through her silver-induced haze. The Moonstone line, the royal family that had ruled all werewolves for over 1,000 years. They were supposed to be extinct, killed in the Great Purge 50 years ago. The royal line died out, James whispered, but his wolf was already cowering, instinctively recognizing royalty. "My father let everyone believe that," Kieran said, advancing on the trembling Delta. "It was safer. But the Moonstone bloodline carries responsibilities that don't end with political convenience." Luna struggled to maintain consciousness as the silver worked through her system. Silvermoon and Moonstone bloodlines, the two most powerful werewolf lineages in history. No wonder their mate bond had been so immediate, so overwhelming. They'd been genetically destined for each other for 1,000 years, James seemed to realize he was facing impossible odds. His hand crept toward another hidden weapon, but Luna forced herself to speak despite the fire in her veins. "Don't," she whispered, her voice carrying what remained of her alpha authority. "It's over, James. Surrender." "Never," James snarled, grabbing what looked like a modified silver grenade. "If I can't purify the bloodlines through selective elimination, I'll start over completely. This much concentrated silver will poison the groundwater for miles. Every werewolf in the territory will be dead within hours." Luna's blood ran cold. The mill sat above the main aquifer that supplied water to 3 pack territories. James wasn't just planning to kill them, he was planning genocide. "You're insane," Kieran said, but Luna could feel his uncertainty through their bond. Even with his royal bloodline, he couldn't stop a silver bomb at this range without risking setting it off. "I'm a visionary," James corrected, his finger hovering over the activation switch. "In 100 years, werewolves will thank me for saving them from genetic degradation." Luna felt her wolf stirring despite the silver poisoning, felt Arya's desperate need to protect not just herself and Kieran, but every innocent werewolf who would die if James succeeded. The Silver Moon bloodline hadn't just been powerful, they'd been protectors, guardians of their species. Drawing on reserves she didn't know she possessed, Luna forced herself to shift back to human form. The silver fought her every step of the way, but her bloodline's inherent resistance to toxins gave her just enough strength to act. "James," she said softly, using every ounce of alpha compulsion she could muster. "Look at me." Against his will, James's eyes met hers. In them, Luna saw not just madness, but grief, loss, the desperate actions of a man who'd watched his world change in ways he couldn't accept. "I know you loved her," Luna said gently. "Your mate, Sarah. She died in that car accident 15 years ago, didn't she? Hit by a drunk human driver." James's hand trembled on the device. "She was perfect. Pure bloodline, strong wolf, everything our species needed. And she died because of human weakness. Human carelessness. And you've been trying to bring her back ever since," Luna continued, understanding flooding through her. "By creating a world where only the pure bloodlines survive. But Sarah wouldn't want this, would she? She wouldn't want you to become a monster in her memory." Tears were streaming down James's face now, his grip on the silver bomb loosening. I miss her so much. Everything's wrong without her." "I know," Luna whispered, her own heart breaking for the grieving mate. "But this won't bring her back. It will just create more grief, more loss. Let us help you, James. Let us find another way." For a moment, Luna thought she'd reached him. James's hand began to lower, his face crumpling with 15 years of suppressed grief. Then his expression hardened, madness reasserting itself. "No, she's gone because of genetic weakness. Because we allowed ourselves to be contaminated. This ends now." His finger pressed down on the activation switch. The silver bomb began its countdown, 30 seconds until detonation. Chapter 11. Royal Blood and Silver Fire. The silver bomb's electronic countdown echoed through the mill like a death knell. 28 seconds. 27. 26. Luna watched helplessly as James Morrison clutched the device to his chest, his face twisted with grief-driven madness. The concentrated silver within would poison the groundwater for generations, turning their territory into a wasteland that no werewolf could survive. "Kieran," Luna gasped, the silver dart's poison making her limbs feel like lead. "The containment protocols. Royal bloodline emergency powers." Kieran's silver eyes widened with understanding, but his face was grim. "Luna, those protocols haven't been used in over 2 centuries. The power requirements alone. 22 seconds. the device announced in its cheerful electronic voice. "Do it," Luna commanded, forcing herself to her knees despite the silver burning through her system. "I'll anchor you." What she was suggesting was theoretical at best, suicidal at worst. Royal bloodline werewolves possessed emergency powers that could bend reality itself, but they required a mate bond connection to channel safely. No one had attempted it in living memory because the energy drain could kill both participants. "Luna, if this fails," Kieran started. "Then we die together," she finished, reaching for his hand. "But if we don't try, everyone dies. Jenny, the pack, innocent children in 3 territories." Their fingers interlocked, and Luna felt the mate bond explode into something beyond anything she'd experienced. It wasn't just emotional connection anymore. It was a conduit for power that made her earlier displays seem like parlor tricks. The Silver Moon and Moonstone bloodlines had been designed to work together, 2 halves of an ancient whole. 18 seconds. Kieran's transformation wasn't physical this time. It was metaphysical. Luna watched in awe as his human form began to glow with silver light, his royal heritage manifesting in ways that defied natural law. The air around them shimmered, reality bending under the weight of power that hadn't been unleashed since the Great Wars. But the energy was too much for one person to contain. Luna felt it seeking an outlet, threatening to tear Kieran apart from the inside. "I've got you," she whispered, opening herself completely to their bond. The power flowed through their connection like liquid starlight. And suddenly Luna understood why their bloodlines had been destined for each other. The Moonstone line provided raw authority, the ability to command reality itself. But the Silver Moon bloodline offered focus, the skill to shape that power into something useful rather than destructive. Together, they reached out with abilities that transcended normal werewolf capabilities, wrapping tendrils of concentrated will around the silver bomb. 12 seconds. James Morrison finally seemed to realize what was happening. His madness-clouded eyes widened as he saw the royal siblings' power manifesting. "No, you can't stop progress. You can't stop purification." He tried to throw the device, to get it away from their influence, but their combined power held it frozen in place. Luna felt Kieran's consciousness merge with hers as they worked together to contain the explosion that would come. 8 seconds. "The silver!" Luna gasped, feeling her bloodline's ancient knowledge surfacing. "We can't stop the detonation, but we can transmute the payload." "Transmutation requires molecular manipulation," Kieran replied, their mental connection allowing rapid communication. "The energy cost will kill us both," Luna finished. "I know, but it's the only way." 5 seconds. Through their bond, Luna felt Kieran's love, his admiration, his absolute trust in her judgment. If she said this was their only option, he would follow her into whatever came next. 4 seconds. They reached deeper into their combined bloodline memories, accessing knowledge that had been passed down through generations of royal werewolves. The secrets of matter manipulation, of elemental control, of powers that had once shaped the very foundations of their world. 3 seconds. Luna felt her body beginning to burn out, the silver in her system reacting violently to the power flowing through her. But she held on, pouring everything she had into the transmutation process. 2 seconds. The silver bomb's payload began to change, its molecular structure shifting under their combined will. Lethal silver nitrate became harmless silver chloride, its toxicity neutralized by their bloodline magic. 1 second. The device exploded, but instead of poison, it released nothing more dangerous than purified water and inert silver particles that would settle harmlessly into the soil. The mill shook with the force of the detonation, but the groundwater remained clean. The territory remained safe. Luna and Kieran collapsed together, their bodies smoking from the energy discharge. The effort had pushed them far beyond their limits, but they were alive, and more importantly, their people were safe. James Morrison stared at them in horror, his life's work undone by the very bloodlines he'd sought to eliminate. "Impossible," he whispered. "The royal powers are extinct. They died with the old kingdom." "The kingdom died," Kieran gasped, struggling to sit up. The bloodlines endured, hidden, protected, waiting for the time when they'd be needed again. Luna felt consciousness slipping away, the silver poisoning finally overwhelming her system despite her bloodline's resistance. But through their bond, she also felt reinforcements arriving. Alpha Reed, Marcus, and a full council strike team led by someone whose power signature was even more impressive than Kieran's. "Father," Kieran whispered. And Luna realized with her last conscious thought that the Alpha King himself had come. As darkness claimed her, she heard a voice like thunder speaking words in the old language, felt healing energy washing over her silver-burned body. Royal power, but older and deeper than anything she and Kieran had managed. She was safe. They were all safe. And when she woke up, Luna realized with growing wonder, she would no longer be the rejected half-breed hiding on the edges of pack society. She would be a queen. The last thing she heard before unconsciousness took her was James Morrison's broken voice. "Sarah. I'm sorry, Sarah. What have I become?" Even in her fading awareness, Luna felt a stab of pity for the grieving mate whose love had curdled into something monstrous. Justice would come for him, but perhaps mercy could too. The royal bloodlines, after all, were meant to protect everyone, even those who had lost their way. Chapter 12. Crown of Silver. Luna awakened to the sensation of warm sunlight streaming across her face and the sound of unfamiliar voices speaking in hushed, reverent tones. Her body felt different, stronger, more complete than it ever had before. The silver poisoning was gone, burned away by healing energy that still hummed faintly through her system. "She's waking." Kieran's voice, rough with exhaustion and relief, came from somewhere close by. Luna opened her eyes to find herself in a room she'd never seen before, elegant but warm, with stone walls covered in tapestries depicting werewolf history. Ancient royal symbols were carved into the wooden beams above her head, and through tall windows, she could see mountains that definitely weren't part of her pack's territory. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice still weak but steady. "The council stronghold," Kieran replied, moving into her line of sight. He looked exhausted but uninjured, his silver eyes bright with concern. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. The healers weren't sure. The silver toxicity combined with the power drain." He swallowed hard. "I thought I might lose you before I really had you." Luna reached for his hand, marveling at the way their mate bond felt different now. Deeper, more established. The crisis had forged their connection into something unbreakable. "Jenny?" she asked. "Is she all right?" Shaken but unharmed. She's become something of a celebrity back home, actually. The human girl who witnessed the return of the royal bloodlines. Kieran's smile was gentle. "She asked me to tell you that she's naming her first daughter Luna." Warmth flooded Luna's chest at the thought of sweet Jenny safe and sound. But other concerns quickly surfaced. "James? What happened to him?" Kieran's expression grew somber. "Under council custody, awaiting trial. But Luna, he's broken. Completely. The healers think the grief madness may be irreversible. He keeps asking for Sarah, doesn't seem to understand what he's done." Luna felt her heart ache for the man who had tried to kill her. Love twisted into obsession, loss transformed into hatred. James Morrison was a cautionary tale about what happened when grief was allowed to fester without healing. "Will he be executed?" she asked quietly. That's not for me to decide, Kieran said carefully. Though as his future queen, your opinion will carry significant weight in the council's deliberations. The title hit Luna like a physical shock. Queen. She was going to be queen of all werewolves, mated to the Alpha King's heir. The girl who had been rejected 3 days ago for being too weak, too human, too fat was now destined to rule an entire species. I don't know how to be a queen, she whispered, sudden panic rising in her chest. You don't have to know yet, a new voice said from the doorway. Luna turned to see a man who could only be Kieran's father. The same silver eyes, the same powerful build, but with an aura of authority that made the air itself seem to bend around him. Your Majesty, she started to say, but he waved her words away. None of that, child. I'm Alexander to family, and you are most definitely family now. His smile was warm, paternal. I've been waiting a very long time to meet the woman who could tame my stubborn son. Father, Kieran warned, but there was affection in his voice. Alexander moved closer, studying Luna with eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. Silvermoon bloodline, without question. But more than that, you carry the specific genetic markers we've been hoping to find for generations. Do you understand what that means? Luna shook her head, still trying to process everything that had happened. The royal bloodlines aren't just about power, Alexander explained, settling into a chair beside her bed. They're about balance. For too long, the Moonstone line has ruled alone, and we've grown rigid, autocratic. We need the Silvermoon influence to remember that leadership is about service, not dominance. My mother never told me any of this, Luna said, confusion evident in her voice. She just taught me to hide what I was. Because she was protecting you, Alexander replied gently. The purge 50 years ago didn't just target the royal family, it went after anyone with significant bloodline markers. Your grandmother was the Silvermoon heir, but she went into hiding when the violence started. Your mother inherited the bloodline, but grew up believing it was safer to suppress it. The pieces of Luna's family history began falling into place. Her mother's strange lessons about dampening her power, her insistence on appearing weak, her fear of drawing attention. It had all been about survival. But why now? Luna asked. Why reveal ourselves now? Kieran and his father exchanged glances. Because the old ways are dying, Kieran said slowly. Werewolf society is fragmenting. Packs are becoming isolationist. Genetic diversity is decreasing. And extremists like James Morrison are gaining influence. We need to unite our people before we destroy ourselves. And that requires both bloodlines working together, Alexander added. The Moonstone authority to command respect, and the Silvermoon wisdom to know when to show mercy. What you two accomplished at the mill, that level of cooperation, that perfect balance of power, that's what our future depends on. Luna felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. No pressure at all, she thought wryly. There's something else, Kieran said, his voice carefully neutral. The council has voted. Our mating ceremony will be the first royal wedding in over 2 centuries. Representatives from every pack in North America will attend, along with delegations from the European and Asian councils. A political spectacle, Luna said flatly. A symbol, Alexander corrected gently. A sign that the royal bloodlines have returned, that leadership and wisdom will guide our people into a new era. But more than that, he looked between them with obvious affection, a celebration of 2 people who found each other against impossible odds and chose to save everyone rather than themselves. Luna felt tears pricking her eyes as the full enormity of what lay ahead hit her. She would never go back to her quiet cottage on the edge of pack territory. Never again be overlooked or dismissed as weak. The rejected half-breed was about to become the most powerful female werewolf in the world. "I'm terrified," she admitted quietly. Kieran's hand found hers, their mate bond singing with shared strength. "Good," he said with a smile. "That means you understand the responsibility, and you won't face it alone." Through the windows, Luna could see werewolves training in the courtyards below. Young and old, from different packs, working together under council guidance. The future of their species, learning to cooperate instead of compete. "When?" she asked. "The full moon in 2 weeks," Alexander replied. "If you're ready." Luna looked at Kieran, saw her own hopes and fears reflected in his silver eyes. They'd known each other for less than a week, but their bond felt like it had existed for lifetimes. Ancient bloodlines recognizing their perfect match. "I'm ready," she said, and meant it. The Queen was coming home. Chapter 13. The Weight of Crowns. 2 weeks had never felt so short and so eternal at the same time. Luna stood before an ornate mirror in what would soon be her royal chambers, watching as elderly seamstresses made final adjustments to a wedding gown that was more work of art than clothing. The dress was a masterpiece of silver silk and moonstone beading, designed to honor both bloodlines that would unite under tonight's full moon. "Stop fidgeting, Your Highness," Madame Cordelia, the head seamstress, chided gently. "The hemline needs to be perfect for the ceremony." Luna forced herself to remain still, though every instinct screamed at her to run. Through the tall windows, she could see werewolves arriving from across the continent. Alphas and their entourages, council members, representatives from packs she'd never even heard of. The largest gathering of werewolves in recorded history, all here to witness her transformation from rejected outcast to queen. Nervous? Luna turned to find Jenny Morrison standing in the doorway, barely recognizable in an elegant blue gown. The young woman had become Luna's unofficial lady-in-waiting over the past 2 weeks, insisting that someone from her old life should be present for her new beginning. "Terrified," Luna admitted. "What if I'm not cut out for this? What if I disappoint everyone?" Jenny moved closer, her expression serious. "Luna, you saved my life. You saved all our lives. You're the strongest person I know, even if you spent years pretending otherwise." Through the windows, Luna could see Kieran in the courtyard below, speaking with a group of foreign dignitaries. Even at this distance, she could feel their mate bond humming with his calm confidence. He'd spent the past 2 weeks in intensive briefings about international werewolf politics, but he still made time every evening to check on her progress, to remind her that they were partners in this overwhelming new reality. "The Alpha King requests a moment with the bride," a guard announced from the doorway. Luna's stomach fluttered as Alexander entered the room, resplendent in formal robes that emphasized his royal bearing. The seamstresses curtsied and withdrew, leaving them alone. "You look beautiful," Alexander said simply. "Like the queen you were born to be." "I was born to be a pack member," Luna corrected. "Maybe a beta's mate if I was lucky. This is all—" She gestured helplessly at the magnificent gown, the royal chambers, the evidence of her transformed life. "May I tell you something about your mother?" Alexander asked gently. Luna nodded, hungry for any information about her family's hidden history. "Elena Silvermoon was supposed to be my mate," Alexander said, watching Luna's face carefully. "Our bloodlines were perfectly matched, our compatibility undeniable. But she chose love over duty. Chose your father, a kind human man who saw past her power to her heart." Luna's breath caught. She rejected you?" "She made the choice that was right for her," Alexander said with a sad smile. "And I respected it. Even though it meant I would never have the perfect genetic match the council wanted. But when she died, and I learned about you, He paused, emotion flickering across his features. I wondered if perhaps fate had simply been waiting for the right generation. The implications made Luna's head spin. You think Kieran and I were always meant to find each other? I think, Alexander said carefully, that some bonds transcend politics and bloodlines. What you and my son have, the way you complement each other, the way your powers merged at the mill, that's not just genetics. That's destiny. A soft knock interrupted them. Kieran stepped into the room, and Luna's breath caught at the sight of him in full royal regalia. The formal clothes did nothing to diminish his raw magnetism. If anything, they enhanced it, making him look like the warrior king he was born to be. Father, the council is ready to begin the preliminary ceremonies, Kieran said, but his eyes never left Luna's face. You look, he trailed off, seemingly lost for words. Like a queen, Alexander said with obvious satisfaction. I'll leave you two alone for a moment. But don't be long. Tradition waits for no one, not even royalty. After Alexander left, Kieran moved closer, his silver eyes intense with emotion. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to step off a cliff, Luna admitted. What if this is all a mistake? What if we're rushing into something because of extraordinary circumstances rather than real compatibility? Kieran reached for her hands, careful not to disturb the delicate beadwork of her gown. Do you remember what you told me that first night? When I was injured and you didn't know who I was? Luna nodded, remembering the unexpected intimacy of caring for him in wolf form. You said your wolf thought I was someone special, Kieran continued softly. That Arya was restless, insisting I was important. That was before you knew about bloodlines or politics or royal obligations. That was just you, recognizing your mate. The truth of his words resonated through their bond. Beneath all the ceremony and pageantry, beneath the weight of crowns and the expectations of an entire species, there was something pure and simple. They belonged together. I love you, Luna said quietly, the words coming easier than she'd expected. Not the king you'll become, not the political alliance our marriage represents. You, the man who protected me, who trusted me with his secrets, who was willing to die to save innocent people. Kieran's smile was radiant. I love you too. The woman who risked everything for a stranger, who hid her strength to protect others, who chose to face a killer rather than let anyone else get hurt. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Luna, everything else, the crown, the politics, the responsibilities, we'll figure it out together. But this, what we have, this is real. A commotion in the courtyard below drew their attention. Through the windows, they could see the ceremonial procession beginning to form. Pack leaders taking their designated positions, council members arranging themselves by rank, the ancient protocols that would formalize their union playing out with clockwork precision. Are you ready? Kieran asked. Luna took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her bloodline's history, the expectations of her people, and the love of her mate all settling into place like pieces of an ancient puzzle. I'm ready, she said, and this time she truly meant it. Tonight, under the full moon's blessing, the rejected half-breed would become a queen, and tomorrow, she and Kieran would begin the work of healing a fractured world. Chapter 14. Beneath the Crown. The ceremonial clearing had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. Ancient oaks formed a natural cathedral, their branches woven with silver ribbons and moonflowers that glowed softly in the twilight. Representatives from every major pack in North America stood in perfect formation, while international delegations added splashes of color with their traditional ceremonial robes. The full moon hung directly overhead, its light seeming to spotlight the raised dais where Luna and Kieran would speak their vows. Luna walked through the assembled crowd on Alexander's arm, her silver gown trailing behind her like liquid starlight. The weight of centuries of tradition pressed down on her shoulders, but with each step, she felt her confidence growing. These weren't strangers judging her worthiness. They were her people, werewolves who had traveled from across the world to witness the return of hope. At the front of the gathering, she spotted familiar faces from her old life. Alpha Reed stood with his pack delegation, his expression unreadable but respectful. Marcus was there too, his arm around a woman Luna didn't recognize. Apparently, he'd found healing in the wake of Sophia's death. Even Delta Morrison had been allowed to attend, though he was flanked by council guards and looked aged by grief and guilt over his brother's actions. But it was the sight of Kieran waiting for her at the altar that made Luna's heart soar. He stood beneath an arch of intertwined silver and moonstone, looking every inch the king he was born to be. When their eyes met, his face lit up with a smile that was purely for her. Not the political figure she was becoming, but the woman he'd fallen in love with in a storm-lashed cottage. "Dearly beloved," the council's high priestess began, her voice carrying clearly through the night air. "We gather under the full moon's blessing to witness the union of two ancient bloodlines. The joining of hearts that will guide our people into a new era of unity and strength." The traditional words washed over Luna as she took her place beside Kieran. Their hands found each other automatically, the mate bond singing with joy and completion. Through their connection, she could feel his calm strength, his absolute certainty that they were meant for this moment. "Kieran Blackthorn, heir to the Moonstone throne," the priestess continued, "do you take Luna Hartwell, daughter of the Silver Moon line, as your mate and queen? Do you promise to honor her wisdom, protect her heart, and rule beside her with justice and compassion?" "I do," Kieran said, his voice ringing with conviction. "Before all our people, before the moon that guides us, before the ancestors who watch over us, I choose Luna as my mate, my partner, my equal in all things." Luna felt tears prick her eyes at the sincerity in his voice. This wasn't just a political alliance being formalized. It was a love story being written in front of hundreds of witnesses. "Luna Hartwell, daughter of the Silver Moon line." The priestess turned to her. "Do you take Kieran Blackthorn as your mate and king? Do you promise to honor his strength, protect his heart, and rule beside him with wisdom and mercy?" Luna looked out at the sea of faces watching her. Some hopeful, some skeptical, all waiting to see what kind of queen she would become. Then she looked at Kieran, at the man who had seen her true strength when she was still hiding it, who had trusted her with his life and his secrets. "I do," she said clearly, "before all our people, before the moon that blessed our first meeting, before the future we'll build together. I choose Kieran as my mate, my partner, my equal in all things." The priestess lifted an ancient silver circlet, the crown of the Silver Moon Queens, hidden away for 50 years and brought out of hiding for this moment. "By the power of the ancient bloodlines, by the blessing of the full moon, by the will of the werewolf nation, I crown you Luna, queen of all werewolves." The circlet settled on Luna's head with surprising lightness, its moonstone centerpiece catching the silvery light. Around the clearing, hundreds of werewolves dropped to one knee in a gesture of respect that took Luna's breath away. "Rise," she said, her voice carrying new authority. "Rise, my people. We are equals in this new world we'll build together." Kieran's coronation followed. The ancient crown of the Moonstone Kings finally returned to its rightful place. When he was proclaimed king, his first act was to take Luna's hand and present her to their people as his queen and equal. "My people," Kieran's voice carried to every corner of the clearing. "Tonight marks not just a wedding, but a new beginning. For too long, Our society has been divided by old prejudices, by the belief that strength comes only in certain forms. My queen has shown us that true power lies not in dominance, but in service. Not in division, but in unity. Luna stepped forward, feeling the weight of her crown and the weight of expectation, but also feeling the solid strength of Kieran's hand in hers. "I was rejected by this society once," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Called weak, called lesser, called unworthy. Tonight, I stand before you not in spite of that rejection, but because of what it taught me. I learned that worthiness isn't measured by bloodline purity or physical strength. It's measured by the courage to help others, to stand up for what's right, to choose love over fear." She looked out at the crowd, seeing nods of agreement, tears on some faces, hope on others. "Together, we will build a werewolf nation where no one is rejected for being different, where strength comes in many forms, where every member of our species has value and purpose. This is my promise to you as your queen." The cheer that went up from the crowd was deafening. Hundreds of voices raised in celebration and hope. As the formal ceremony gave way to celebration, Luna found herself swept up in a whirlwind of congratulations and well wishes. Hours later, as the festivities continued in the Great Hall, Luna and Kieran slipped away to a private balcony overlooking the mountains. The crown felt natural on her head now. No longer a burden, but a symbol of the responsibility she'd willingly accepted. "Any regrets?" Kieran asked, pulling her close against his side. Luna thought about the question seriously. A week ago, she'd been a rejected half-breed living in obscurity. Now she was queen of an entire species, married to a man she'd known for barely 2 weeks, responsible for guiding her people into an uncertain future. "None," she said firmly. "This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." Through the windows behind them, they could hear the sounds of celebration, laughter, music, the voices of werewolves from around the world sharing stories and forging new friendships. The beginning of the unity they'd promised to build. "I love you, my queen," Kieran murmured against her hair. "I love you too, my king," Luna replied, feeling the absolute rightness of the words. Under the full moon's blessing, the rejected girl had become a queen. But more importantly, she'd found her home, her purpose, and the love that would guide her through whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was theirs to write, and Luna couldn't wait to begin. In the months that followed, Queen Luna's reign would transform werewolf society. Pack borders became more fluid, genetic diversity increased, and the old prejudices began to fade. The cottage where she'd first cared for an injured wolf became a monument to the power of compassion, while the mill where they'd faced their greatest challenge was rebuilt as a training center for young werewolves learning to control their abilities. James Morrison received treatment for his grief-induced madness and eventually found peace, spending his remaining years working with bereaved mates to prevent others from following his dark path. Marcus found love again and became one of Luna's most trusted advisors. His guilt over their past transformed into dedication to her vision of equality. And every full moon, King Kieran and Queen Luna would return to that small clearing where their story began, remembering the night when fate brought two lonely souls together and changed the world.